Welcome back to Part-Time Bodybuilder. This is your host, Holly Jeans. I'm very excited to be joined by Mana, who has literally just last weekend got her IFBB Pro card in figure and has obviously done the first show since COVID happened. So thanks for joining, Mana. I don't know whether you want to do a quick introduction to yourself.
So Mana, I compete in figure, but I also did physique at the weekend. And I think part of the interestingness is that I'm a paramedic full time. So I'm doing all of this whilst doing 12-hour shifts. I've been training bodybuilding style for 2.5 years, but before that it was all CrossFit.
We've come from the same background and I didn't
Yeah.
I was CrossFit before.
Yeah, and then Brittany drew me to the light.
We've both gone over to the dark side, or the light
Yeah,
side, whatever you want to look at it as.
yeah.
So how are you feeling after the weekend? Because obviously it was a massive weekend for you last weekend. How
Yeah.
did you come back down off of cloud nine?
Not quite yet. I think it's quite, comparing it to post shows that I've done before. So this was my 6th show, and I've only ever placed in a big lineup once, and that was at Body Power last year, and I came 3rd. So it's quite nice to have the high rather than that kind of the post-show blues that we all talk about, where you're just like, oh, what do I do now? So it is nice to have that hype and to be like, actually, this is at the end of the show, and the end of the prep, but it's the start of a whole new journey. But I think the short answer is no. I'm still up here somewhere, and every now and then I kind of remember, because most of the time it's just like just going in and training, and it was going back to the gym on Thursday where I was suddenly around people that knew what it meant and had seen how hard I'd worked. So that was when it kind of began to sink in a little bit more, as opposed to
goosebumps.
yeah. So have I, actually. It's so weird, and I haven't actually told my parents yet. No, I'm seeing my mum on Monday, so I'll probably tell her then. She's got a bit of a interesting opinion on bodybuilding. She doesn't like it,
Yeah.
and because I didn't know if the show was definitely going to go ahead. We've still got this big COVID thing hanging over our heads. I didn't tell her because I just wanted to get the show done and not have to then go through the rigmarole of, oh, it's been cancelled and that sort of stuff. So yeah, I will tell her. I think it will sink in more once I've told my parents. But then it's having to explain what it actually means to them, because they don't know, they don't
It's
understand.
quite a difficult one, isn't it? Explaining it to someone outside.
Yeah. I think my dad will appreciate the significance more than my mum, because like he's always been into sport a lot more than mum.
Yeah.
And training and that sort of thing, so I think he'll understand it a bit more, whereas mum's just like, women with muscles, oh no, that's not very feminine.
Yeah.
Which is difficult, shall we say. But
Yeah,
you
it's
got
a
to do,
difficult one.
yeah, and you got to do what you want to do and what is good for you, and what you've got to follow your own path, haven't you? So I'm sure once she sees how excited and happy I am about it, she'll come around. Yeah, fingers crossed.
Yeah,
But
like you
yeah,
say, it's
otherwise,
a bit of a difficult one, getting the understanding and kind of explaining things to people. Like I've talked before to like close friends about like IFBB Pro and stuff like that, and it's almost like, how can you explain, like,
yeah,
like, oh, do you really want to do that? Like, is that something you really want to do? So
I had a conversation with a very close friend, a few weeks ago, and she wasn't doing it to kind of put pressure or anything. I think it was just a legitimate question. She was like, so how long are you going to keep doing this for? And it's a bit like, it took me back, because I was like, I don't know. And she was like, you can't keep putting your body through this, surely. And I was sort of thinking to myself, well, I've only been doing it 2 years, so I don't really feel like I'm ready to anywhere near ready to stop. But it was almost, it did take me back, because I was like, wasn't expecting it and hadn't really thought about it. And I don't see it like that. I see it as long as I am enjoying this process, I'll keep doing it. That's the main reason. When it becomes laborious, then maybe it's time for a change. But at the moment, I love the training, I love the prep. I've even loved the off season and getting big enough to not fit in any of my clothes this year, which is, you know, that's a development within how comfortable I feel, which is nice.
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm the same. I actually weirdly had the same question, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
My mum said to me, like, how long are you going to actually do this for? And again, I was like, oh, I don't know. Like, because to me, it's my lifestyle now. It's not this big sacrifice that they see it as. Like me, I did my sister's baby shower. So I'm cutting at the moment, so I wasn't eating the cake, I wasn't eating the buffet food, that kind of stuff. And to me, that's not a big deal anymore. But to them, it is. Like, I'm not drinking, I'm not eating cake, and that's to them a big sacrifice. And they would see that as not enjoying themselves, whereas I don't see it that way.
Yeah, my mum can cope with the not drinking, because I've not drank before even. I think we were talking about it in the gym earlier. Like, the last time I had a hangover was the day before I went and met Brittany to discuss the first comp prep that I did. So that was 2.5 years ago was the last time I had a hangover. And even before then, I hadn't really, it was purely by accident that I ended up having enough wine to give me a hangover, because I went for dinner the night before with a friend. But before that, I'd still cut it quite low anyway, and that's more to do with work than the bodybuilding side of things. So mum's used to that, but yeah, she does get a bit like so you won't eat this apple cake I've made, but you're eating rice cakes with jam, and you're eating Biscoff spread that's full of sugar, you know. And I'm like, oh dear. It's different.
At work, I'll get questions like, I'll be sat eating oats and peanut butter and jam or whatever, and they're like, well, how can you eat that? And it's just like, oh.
Or I get a lot, what is that? And people trying to touch it. They want to touch my food. I'm like, what are you doing?
Or I get, oh, that looks disgusting. And I think, I wouldn't do that to you. Like,
I've actually pulled someone up on that before at work who was like, oh, that looks horrendous. I'm like, I don't say that about your breakfast, so please don't say that about mine. And he just looked at me. I was, to be fair, I was hangry. I'd done my fasted cardio. I was like, cutting and just like, no, don't tell me
not today.
Don't mess, not today. He'd also told me whilst I was doing my fasted cardio, because this was during lockdown and I was lucky enough to have access to a work gym. And he'd also told me while I was in the work gym before shift that I shouldn't, be careful. Don't tire yourself out before you've even started work. Yeah, that's quite a common one.
And I think it's just lack of awareness and people not thinking before they speak, rather than it coming from a malicious place.
Yeah, and I mean, the environment I was in was quite male dominated, and I don't think they were necessarily that used to having a female that was strength wise on a level footing with them. You know, they were always used to being the strong ones, and then I'm in the gym and they're having to put the weight down after I've used the machine. So I think that kind of makes them a little bit sometimes as well. But it is what it is.
Bit intimidated or feel a little bit inferior, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, and these guys, the one I'm thinking of particular, he was in his 50s, so he's not really, I've got 20 years on him kind of thing, so it's all right, mate, it's okay. yeah, but no, I think, as you say, they don't think, and they're not necessarily intending to offend, so I try and take it with a pinch of salt, but when you're hangry, it's difficult. You do snap occasionally, don't you?
Yeah, catch yourself thinking, oh.
Yeah, shouldn't have said that out loud. Inside voice.
Yeah, keep it in there.
Yeah. I'm not very good at that when I'm hangry.
No, I'm not either. I
Yeah.
just end up saying to people, can you just give me 5 minutes? I need to eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Come and talk to me.
I had a moment like that. What was I? Less than a week out, and I was on shift, and the girl I was working with got McDonald's for lunch, and I'm just sat there like eating. What was I eating? I think I had chicken salad.
You're like,
Oh,
oh.
yeah, it was just the smell. It was the smell that did it. And then all I wanted after the show was McDonald's, and every McDonald's I drove past was shut. So
What did you have post-show? It's a very important
So
question.
as immediately as I came off stage, I'm quite weird, and I wanted jasmine rice, avocado, and Tesco's deli chicken, flavoured with, I
Okay.
think it was mango and coconut. Was what I had as soon as I got off stage, because I just felt, I found previous shows, I just need proper food.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to put too much sugar in my body and then be buzzing and then crash, especially with the drive. So I was like, I'll be sensible, I'll have that. And then on the drive home, I bought some pick and mix like a couple of days before.
Yeah.
So it was just something I could munch on easily on the way back. And I had a tiger bread and cheese roll.
Yum.
Just so weird. It was what I could find in Tesco's. That was
I
still
had
open.
a massive craving for Marmite on toast last time I was on prep.
Oh, yes. I
And
love a Marmite.
eggs Benedict, which I did have the following morning last time.
Yeah. Yeah. I was pretty good. Like, because I didn't get my reverse plan until Thursday, but I just sort of intuitively ate.
Yeah.
So I wasn't tracking. I didn't go mental. I had my McDonald's, but I just, yeah, if I wanted an extra bagel, I just had the extra bagel, but still tried to keep it clean. It was, as I say, it was more the mental break than anything else, and trying to get through my night shifts.
I think the more shows you do, the more you learn what works for you, and you can kind
Yeah.
of rein it in a little bit more. I know for me, I'm better off like you did. I think I had a Greek yogurt and some protein powder in it post-show last time, and then I had a muffin. But I'm almost better not going crazy and just having bits and pieces. Because I know if I come off and eat like a massive pizza or something, that will be it. I'll be on a roll.
Yeah, it was like after Amateur Olympia, Brittany had organised this burger dude to deliver because we were up in London, and they were epic, but I did just feel really full and bloated and kind of almost hungover the next day from all the kind of, I don't know, the additives or the grease or just the sheer volume of food. I'm not sure which, but yeah, it did make me feel a bit rubbish. So I thought this time, no, I'll be a bit more sensible and try and not go crazy.
I think when your body's not used to that type of food as well, and then you have a lot of it, it's almost like, what are you doing to me?
Yeah. Well, it's having to work harder, isn't it? And it is all this junk that it's just been so clean for 18, 20 weeks. I've lost track of how many weeks I was on prep for, to be fair.
When did you start? Did you start at the beginning of the year?
Prep?
Yeah.
Do you mean? So no, I think we bulked until must have been the beginning of March, sort of maybe the first week of March, because it was literally, I'd done 2 weeks of prep and with the mind of doing a July show, I think it was, and then lockdown happened, so we reversed it again, and then I think it was when the gyms were allowed to open outside. So what was that, the 4th of July, I think, wasn't it?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was that Monday we then started, so the following Monday we then started prep.
Okay, so it was a relatively quick prep then.
Well, initially we were aiming for the October Tubro show, but then when they announced the British, we moved it to then, which worked fine for me. My first prep I did with Brittany was only 12 weeks, so I wasn't stressing about the time. I knew I could come in with the condition. Yeah, so I think it was actually probably one of the longer preps I've done, but at the same time, that was quite nice and novel because you drop so much more gradually.
Yeah.
I had a training course, 2-week intense training course quite early on in the prep, which was quite a struggle with trying to deal with the physical side of the course and hit my food. Yeah, and get the training in because it was staying away, and yeah, it was a bit of a nightmare, but still managed to get through that as well.
And was the aim this year always to get the IFBB Pro card?
So when I first started working with Rob, we did the questionnaire, and it was that what short-term goal, long-term goal.
Yeah.
And I think my short-term goal was to increase muscle mass and bring up weaker areas, which has always been my glutes and hamstrings. Upper body's generally been pretty good, thank you CrossFit. But yeah, like CrossFit does nothing for your glutes and hammies really. So I'm still trying to catch up even now on that. So that was the short term. And the long term goal, I was a bit like, when I said it and put it in the questionnaire, pro cards, it was a bit of a flippant, oh, let's aim high. I'd be happy with a show win, you know, that sort of a class win. I'd be happy with that. And then when Rob was like, no, I think pro card's realistic, it was just a bit like, really? Okay.
Oh, we're doing this.
I never expected it to be so quick. You know, it's been less than a year that we've been working together and I've got it. So it's, yeah, I think it's taught me that I need to believe in myself a little bit more. That's for sure.
I was going to say, was the self-belief there that you could do it?
No, it wasn't. And that's like something I've been trying to work on, but obviously hadn't successfully worked on it enough. But I think it's the most confident I've ever felt going into a show, but I still didn't think I'm going to win it. Yeah. I don't have that in me to kind of think it's like I'd really like to win it. I'd be over the moon to win it, but I don't have that, oh yeah, no, I'm going to win.
Yeah.
Just don't.
So
yeah. Is
there a plan of action now?
Bring up glutes and hammies more. That's in my mind. Because Rob's obviously had the male British finals this weekend, and it's only been a week. We haven't really. I've done check-ins, but and he's given me my reverse plan, but we haven't really spoken about. So what we're trying to achieve. When are we going to do the next show? And I think all of that will come later on in the year anyway, because the pro shows are still quite dictated by all the COVID restrictions. And actually, in my head, it's quite nice to take that step back. Right, I've achieved what I want to achieve. There's no point, because there is a pro show, I think in November, but I'm not sure if there's a figure category in it. And I kind of think there's no point doing a show that close, because I've only just won the pro card. Let's try and improve even more, so that I want to bring a competitive package to the pro stage, not just I want to do a pro show. I want to hold my own. So for my own sort of mental well-being with that, I think definitely taking some time to grow and try and bring up even more those areas that I consider a weakness, and then see what's underneath towards the end of next year.
And you went back on stage after winning your pro cards to do women's speak. Is that in the plan for future?
So Rob said to me 2 weeks out, I'd done my check-in, I'd gone to sleep ready for a night shift, and I've woken up to this message saying, so I think you should do physique as well. I think you should enter physique. And I was like, really? Oh my God. And first off, I was buzzing because I was like, oh wow, he thinks that I can hold my own in physique. Yeah, all right. And then it suddenly occurred to me, I was like, I've got 2 weeks to learn a whole new posing routine and a routine. Oh my God. And that freaked me out. So cue a last minute trip up to Ashford to go over some posing with Rob. And I I did a Two Bros posing seminar, must be about 18 months ago, up in Birmingham. And it was with Ria and Donna Murphy.
Yeah.
And I went up and did the figure posing. And I'm there sort of sideways glancing at the physique girls doing their posing without their heels on. And I'm like, I want to try that. So I stepped in and we went through some of the posing then. And I did love the posing, but I'd completely forgotten it because I've been so focused on the figure poses. Yeah. So it was a bit shaky, and the routine was literally cobbled together in my head, rehearsed a couple of times and then done on stage. But I kind of thought to myself, it will be fun. I'll do it. I love the posing. So I've got no expectations, and won my height class for that as well. But there was only 2 of us, so I don't really count that.
But then you got second in the overall, didn't you? Or
no, I think it was just they just called the pro card out. I can't remember.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, they just called the pro card.
Did I see that you were sending posing videos or pictures to Donna at like midnight the night before?
So I messaged her after I saw the message from Rob. I messaged her on Instagram, and I didn't get a reply. And I wasn't like, didn't think anything of it because I know she's got a lot more on her plate than replying to a message from somebody she hardly knows about posing. So I was just like, yeah, no, that's fine. I'll just make do kind of thing. And then, yeah, she's messaged me the night before on Instagram. She's like, oh my God, I'm just going through all my messages. Like, when's your show? And I was like, tomorrow. So she sent me her mobile number and was like, do a video, send it to me, and I'll give you some pointers. And then I did that right before I went to sleep. I sent the video across, and I woke up to, all these, like, she's taken the time to screenshot the videos I've sent her and draw little diagrams on it where I need to move my arms or where I need to move my feet and that sort of thing, and gave me some really good tips and good encouragement. So that was my little fangirl moment of, oh my God, I've got Murphy's mobile number. Oh.
So that was nice as well, like,
oh yeah, totally. And then she wished me good luck and things like that. So that was a real boost, and that was cool. That was really cool.
One thing I definitely love about this community is like how nice the majority of people are.
Oh yeah, totally love it. There was a girl actually when I was having my makeup done who was in having her hair done at the same time, and we're just chatting, and you know how it is when you're in those chairs, and the girls doing our hair and makeup were asking us questions, and oh, so what do you do? And I was like, I'm a paramedic, and she's like, I'm a firefighter, and I was like, really? That's a small world. And then chatting some more, where'd you come from? Oh, I come from Exeter. She lives in Newton Abbot, which is like 20 minutes down the road. I do a lot of overtime down there with work, and the fire station and the ambulance station share they've got separate buildings, but the yard car park, we share it. So it's like, how small a world is that? And she uses the same woman for her bikinis that I do as well, Miss Bikini Fitness. So it was just like, this is creepy, this is a creepy small world, you're literally down the road from me. So it was her first ever show, and she did really well, and I think we're going to try and get a session in at some point once the dust settles and we've got some more food in us.
When you got
training with other people. So that's I love that community side of it, totally. Met so many, like yourself, it's just like kind of chatting to people, isn't it? And oh, so you do this and blah, 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 that kind of thing.
I just find people fascinating, and I do think it's so inspiring, like how many people come from so many different backgrounds and do so many different, jobs, like you juggle work and bodybuilding, and there's like plenty of other people who've got stuff going on outside, and it's really nice to kind of hear.
Yeah, definitely. And it's that kind of like, there literally is no excuse if you set your mind to something and you're that determined. It doesn't matter what you do for work and the obstacles that might be in place, that, you know, working nights, we all know that messes with your body weight and your water retention and your mood, and it's so like, tedious, but it's still not an excuse if you're that determined that you want to do it.
Yeah, like I know people who are like carers for their parents or like
Yeah.
all sorts of stuff, and they still manage to. There's a girl in our gym, I don't know whether you know her, Danny, she's got 3 girls.
Oh, yeah, Danny Brooke.
And
Yeah,
she competes, and you just think, like, it's amazing what people
yeah,
can balance and juggle. And like you say, you really are capable of whatever you set your mind to.
exactly. It's only those self-limiting obstacles really that stop you doing it.
Yeah.
And like I get a lot of people, I expect you're the same, oh, your dedication, I couldn't do that. It's like, well, if you wanted it enough, you could.
Yeah, and I get,
And it,
oh, you're so motivated, and I actually every time now I'm like, I'm not motivated. Like, there's plenty of days where I don't want to get out of bed or I don't want to get off the sofa and go to the gym, but that's when discipline and kind of drive kicks in and you force yourself.
I've also found it's become habit.
Yeah.
Like this week has been really strange not doing fasted cardio. And every now and then I get those little bubbles of anxiety of I should be doing fasted cardio. And I'm like, no, I don't need to. Stop it. Because it's just become the habit for X amount of weeks. It's just what I've done. It's like get up, check in, drag myself to the gym, then go and have breakfast. And yeah, it's quite hard to break the habit of not having to do it. But also quite
it just
nice.
becomes routine.
Yeah. And like that's what I found so strange about in between my night shifts is not having to do anything like that. It's just like, because it's just what I do.
Yeah. So how did this all start for you? How did you find bodybuilding?
So I'd moved from London back to Dorset. So I'm from Dorset originally, and I'd been working as a paramedic in London for 13 years and just had enough of it. And I was seeing a guy at the time that trained at Majestic in Bournemouth.
Yeah.
And I was still very much in the CrossFit world. And when I moved down, just, you know, like you do when you're in a relationship, you start doing the things that each other are interested in. So I started going with him to Majestic. And at first I was like so out of my depth.
Yeah.
It was unreal. I was like, this doesn't feel like training to me. My heart rate is like 100 beats per minute. What's going on?
My lungs are burning.
Yeah, I'm not wanting to throw up. This isn't real. This isn't training.
Yeah.
And unfortunately that relationship broke down, and I tried to stay at Majestic because I love Majestic, but it just wasn't working. So I found South Coast Powerhouse in Kinston. Yeah, big up South Coast Powerhouse. And did my drop in, and suddenly this little Canadian's come bounding over to me. She's like, oh my god, you're new, do you compete? Oh, you look like you compete. And she was just like, I was, whoa. And it was Brittany. And she's like, you should compete, you really should compete, you should think about competing. And I was like, no, it's just so not me. I don't like attention being on me. That's too many sequins, too much makeup, it's not what I'm about. And so we just carried on training, chatting as you do, that sort of thing. And probably about 6 weeks later, I was rushing to cook dinner for a friend, and I managed to sever a nerve in my hand trying to get stone out of an avocado.
Oh no.
So I had to have nerve repair surgery, and I was off work for nearly 2 months with it whilst it was healing. I could still obviously, I could train push, I could train legs, and I could sort of, at certain times, I could pull as well. I couldn't do anything like grippy deadlift barbell, but some of the machine pull downs I could do. So I got a bit bored. It's it's annoying, like when you're off for that amount of time, you run out of time, you run out of money, but you have all the time in the world, so you can't keep like socializing because you just don't have the money. So I was throwing myself into the gym, and CrossFit was a bit difficult at that point. I was still doing both because of all the barbell and gripping. I was finding I was going to classes and missing half the workout, so I started doing more at South Coast. And it got to a point where I was like, I need a goal, I need something to focus on. So I messaged Brit and I was like, let's do it. So we found PCA in London. I think it was the end of September 2018. Did a 12-week prep, I went up there on my own, had no idea what to expect. I did get my makeup done, but I did my own hair. I bought a bikini off of eBay and some shoes I actually bought new. And yeah, stepped on stage for the first time. Didn't have a clue what I was doing. My posing was horrific, but I fell in love with it. I just absolutely fell in love with it. And I think it was more the sense of achievement of I actually stepped on stage in a bikini. Although my posing was horrific, my condition held its own.
Yeah.
Like I didn't place, but I was just pleased to get the photos back and think I didn't look horrific and I didn't make a complete tit of myself. So
and it's such a massive achievement just to get there. Like I think so many first timers focus on the placing, but
yeah,
it's a massive achievement in itself to, like you say, for some people it's just getting on the stage for the first time. For some people it's not falling over in their heels, but for
there's that. I live in work boots or trainers, never wear heels.
But for most people it should just be such a massive, like you've won by getting on stage, because there's such a small percentage of people will ever be able to say that they've done it. Like that's an achievement in itself.
Yeah, that was. And then I was going to do another show, a different federation. I can't even remember what the federation was now. I was just going to do it because I was in condition and I loved it so much.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where I was driving back from a posing session with Brittany to my mum's place, and I had to fill up with fuel. So I've gone to Tower Park, Tesco's, filled up with fuel, started driving home, got to the roundabout with the fire station on it.
I know this story, I'm so excited.
Yeah. Van cuts out. It's a VW camper van. Van cuts out in the middle of the roundabout. I'm like, oh shit. I've managed to coast over to the other side, rung my mate. He's come out and jump started me and followed me. We've got to the Litchett Minster roundabout. Same thing happened again. Jump started, carried on going, got to the Beer Regis roundabout, and I was like, I'm not going to be able to get through Dorchester. If this is what happens anytime I need to change down gears, no, I need to, no. So I've called the RAC. They've come and low-loaded me, and we've gone to my mate's mum's for dinner, which was the plan the whole time. And it was only when I was telling his mum what had happened that night, and I was like, oh my God, I put petrol in my diesel van. I then messaged Brittany and I'm like, I think we need to stop my prep now. I can't afford the show because I may have to repair my van, which I was sleeping in between shifts at the time, commuting. So yeah, I said to her, I was like, nah, well, I can't do this show. I still had like a month out. So I'm not doing it. And sat and ate a massive roast dinner. But I was just like, I can't believe I was that stupid to pick up the green handle and not the black handle. Luckily, I'd only put like 15 quid in it and it survived. And it just cost me like 150 to get it cleaned out, which I think was pretty good considering it could have completely stuffed the engine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I was just like, no, Britt, I can't do this. And she was like, no, let's not. Let's get you out of the hole. Because I was, pretty tiny human by then.
And I suppose going on to your work, that kind of brain function is pivotal because you can't be treating patients and feeling like you've got their brain. So how do you manage that on prep?
Actually, night shifts are a lot easier because I find after about 2 a.m. I'm not hungry. So my eating window, I swap it round completely on nights. So I'll have breakfast when I wake up, then I'll go and train. So I've got my post either side. And then we normally have a couple of breaks through the shift. So on my first break, I'll have my post food, which is like normally sweet potato and chicken.
Yeah.
And then I'll have my chicken salad a bit later on in the night. And then I won't eat again until I wake up and have my breakfast in the evening, in the afternoon when I wake up. I generally prep all my food the day before I start a shift. So I've got enough meals, because I normally do 4 in a row at max. So you can kind of get away with your chicken being cooked and lasting for 4 days. So that all I have to do is maybe chop up some salad and whack it in my freezer bag and take it to work. So that reduces the time in between shifts that I'm faffing around and gives me more time for the gym. Day shifts are a bit more tricky because they're 12-hour shifts. So I'll try and get away with not having my breakfast as late as possible. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm quite lucky with the amount of meals I have. I normally try and do my first 12-hour shift is a rest day. So I've got more meals and I'm not training. So I try and space them out with 3 hours in between. But it is quite tricky when you get stuck on a call. Like we did a transfer from Plymouth to Bristol. So we got that job at like 8 o'clock in the evening, picked the patient up, got up to Bristol, and all I had was my sweet potato and chicken. I was like, I can't eat that cold. I just can't eat it cold. So I had a couple of bagels that I snacked on, but it was like 3 a.m. before we got back to station to have our first break. So I was starving. The poor girl I was working with, I was like, I'm really sorry. I'm not going to speak much on the way back. I am so hungry. But it was just like, I couldn't eat it cold. It's the one cold sweet potato is the one thing I just cannot eat.
Yeah, I have to say, cold sweet potato is not the one.
No, it's like I can eat my scrambled egg and oats cold. That doesn't bother me. Not bothered at all. Ground rice cold, also not bothered. But sweet potato, I just can't do it. So yeah, I was pretty hungry by then. But generally, even if we are stuck with a patient for whatever reason, there's 2 of us. So there's always the kind of like, I'm just going to get something from the ambulance and just shovel a couple of mouthfuls in to keep me going and then go back in again. You know, there's always, if the patient's like stable enough, generally, if they're really unwell, you're not waiting around with them in their home for a long time anyway. So that's how I sort of manage the eating. The thinking, you kind of, I don't know, I'm just trying to think myself, like there's been a couple of times where I'm like, I'm really hungry and I'm not thinking clearly, but it's very rare. Your adrenaline kind of takes over.
Yeah, I was going to say, is it almost like a switch? So like when you're with a patient, you just know that you have to switch on.
Yeah, and you kind of forget about it because you're concentrating on what you're doing rather than thinking, I'm hungry. I generally find that's the best technique for me to deal with hunger, is to occupy my mind, and then I won't worry, I won't think about it. It's when I've got nothing to do that I'm like, I'm hungry. I'm still hungry. I'm still really hungry.
Bored and I'm hungry.
Yeah, I'm going to go to bed because then I won't think about food. I was going to bed on prep at like 8:30, 9 o'clock, so then I wouldn't have to think about food.
And how do you manage training? So, for example, it's training day on a day shift. Would you do your 12-hour shift and then go and train?
So currently my rota is 4 shifts on, 4 shifts off. So I do 2 day shifts and then 2 night shifts. So the first day shift will be a rest day because I live quite far away from where my station is. So they're like 14-hour days if I don't get late off. That's another obstacle as well. But so the first day will be a rest day because I've got to get up early and do it all again the next day. So the next day on prep, I was going for a walk at like 4:30 in the morning to get my fasted cardio done, going to work, doing the shift, and I would always train shoulders after that day shift because it's quite a quick, not taxing day.
Yeah.
It was quite snappy, done, you know, smaller muscle, you just get fatigued, and I could do it quite quickly. The bigger like back day and leg day, I'd save for either a day off or in between nights. So I do the day before I go into my first night shift. So while I'm awake during the day, I'll train legs because I've normally had a really good sleep. I'm really fresh. So I'll try and sleep until like 11 o'clock in the morning. And that'll be me. I'll be awake then until 7 a.m. the following morning. So yeah, I'd go and train legs then. And then in between the 2 night shifts where I'm still a bit tired and a bit fuzzy, I'll train back. Generally, back's always been my strongest area. So I know if it suffers a bit from me being tired from my nights, it's already a strong area on me anyway. So I don't stress too much. If I tried to train legs, I'd just be like, oh my God, this is going horrifically. So it's better to train that after a decent sleep. And then when I come off nights, so my first day off and I finish work at 7 a.m, I'll use that as a rest day as well, because trying to train after a night shift is quite tricky. Although I've done it today, but that was just the 1 night shift. It wasn't too bad. So I train shoulders. So if I feel I'm really fatigued, I'll always do a shoulder day.
Yeah.
And then leave the bigger compound days for when I'm a bit fresher. It's sort of how I
so
fit
kind of
it
working
in.
it to what suits you and what your body can
Yeah, I think Rob was probably tearing his hair out when we first started working together, because my shift pattern was a lot more all higgledy-piggledy all over the place. He'd be like, what are you training? What's your training split at the moment? I'm like, well, this week it's this, but next week it will be that. Yeah, so he's kind of got used to just ask me for a couple of days now. Like when he was trying to work out my refeeds on prep, he was like, so what are you training the next 3 days? I'd be like, right, legs this day, shoulders this day, back. All right, we'll give you refeed on your leg and your back days and have these carbs. So I think that works quite well for me anyway. And then when I was having to do fasted cardio on prep, I'd take my pre-workout meal with me. I'd do my fasted cardio, get in the car, sit in the car, eat, give it like 20 minutes and then go back in and do my strength. The guys at the gym were just like, you've been here 4 hours, what are you doing? I haven't actually been here, been in the car.
eating and
yeah, so I think they were just a bit like, what's she doing? But they got used to it in the end.
But I think that's just such proof that if you can do it and you can fit it in, then there's not really any excuse that people don't have any time.
It's just about dedicating those few hours on the day before you start a run of shifts to make sure all your meals are sorted. And the kitchen is just carnage when I'm doing it. It's like there's stuff everywhere. I managed to use every utensil in my kitchen, every plate, every bit of Tupperware. It's an absolute mess, but at least then, and then I'm putting them in the fridge. My OCD comes out and they're in the fridge all in like the days, 4 of them lined up, all the food that I'm going to take. So I literally just have to do that, put it in my freezer bag and off I go. But it's so worth it to then not have to think about it. When you're in between your shifts and you're already a bit fuzzy.
I suppose planning out in advance and knowing that you can just grab it and go. And there's only that one meal, like I said, that I have to microwave. So if we don't get our rest break, but I need to eat, I can eat on the hop. Like if I'm being driven to a call, they're like being thrown around with blue lights on, trying to get the salad. So avocados on the floor, no! Yeah, the amount of avocado I end up with on my work uniform, and I'm just like, oh man. Oh wow.
That's like such a stress to try and get off without like soap and water. Walk into patients' houses, it's like, I'm really sorry, I ate on the way here, that's why I look a mess.
I was getting chucked around in the car while I was trying to eat.
Yeah, basically, it's all over. And then in the dark as well, I'm like, can I put the light on? Sorry, I need to eat.
And a colleague generally understanding?
They're very intrigued, definitely. Get a lot of questions, which in prep can be quite, as we all know, when you're just hangry all the time. Having questions when all you want to do is shovel the food in your mouth is quite tricky. But yeah, they're generally like, oh my God, that's amazing, I couldn't do that, the usual type of thing. And then every now and then you'll work with somebody that trains to some sort of extent, which is really cool because then you can just talk training for the whole 12 hours.
And then they kind of get it.
Yeah. Like last night, I worked with a guy who used to be in the Marines, and when he was in the Marines, he was quite a high-level boxer. So yeah, we were able to talk training, and he knew the significance of what it meant to have won my pro card, and that was really nice. And I'd worked with him, must have been about 2 months ago. So he's like, "How did you do?" That sort of stuff. And they're generally quite supportive. It was just the few older ones that can sometimes be a little bit like, why are you doing that?
Yeah, just don't get it.
Yeah, and the occasional, just eat a pizza, you're too skinny. It's like, I'm not actually skinny. Not saying I'm fat, but I wouldn't class my muscle mass as skinny.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like, yeah. Well, you're always eating. Why are you always eating? I've got to, otherwise I'll fall over. So I get that quite a lot. Eating again?
Yeah, I think that's what I get quite a lot of. Is I've always been quite little and often anyway, but it's like, oh, you're eating again. I'm like, yes.
Yeah, the usual sort of questions, I suppose.
Do you tend to have the same crewmates, or do they change quite a lot?
No. They change quite a bit. Yeah, generally it's where I work now. They're kind of, every now and then you might do a few shifts with the same person, and then you won't work with them again for a couple of weeks, and then you might do another few shifts with them, which is quite nice. So you generally know the people you're working with, but they're not always the same. When I was in London, I had a regular crewmate for 4 years, and luckily we got on really well. Yeah. So it was fine. But I have had instances where you do a shift with somebody and you're like, I never want to work with you ever again. That was a long 12 hours.
Yeah.
Few and far between, but yeah, that can be.
It's a long time to be spent trapped in a vehicle with someone.
Yeah, trapped in a big yellow box. Yeah. And I've had a few, because obviously like wearing a jacket, you wouldn't necessarily know that I've got any sort of muscle mass on me. So I have had people go, "Oh, do you want me to carry that for you? You're just a little girl after all." And I'm like, "Go on, mate, crack on, fill your boots." And then later on in the shift, I take my jacket off and they're like, you can just see the confusion on their face. "Oh, you've got good veins, haven't you?" Yeah, you could have done that lift, but never mind.
Fine, yeah, you did it for me. I didn't need to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely use that one to your advantage.
Yeah, although I did have a heart-sinking moment when I thought I might have to do CPR in peak week, which would have been a struggle. Yeah. At the end of the day. Yeah. At the end of the day, like after it was right at the last minute on our 12-hour shift, and I'd eaten all my food. I just had my because I was going to go and train after work. And yeah, we got a cardiac arrest, and luckily there was enough people there, so I had to do other things that didn't involve high energetic CPR, because that would have been, I think it would have fallen over after that.
Yeah. Send me home now.
I was at that point, we probably all know, when you kneel down and you start standing up and getting head rushes.
Yeah.
So I was well and truly in that zone by this point, and that probably would have seen me out. There wouldn't have been any training after that.
It would have been carrying you out on a stretcher.
Yeah. It wasn't. I would have got it. I would have done it. I would have made it work, but it would have had an impact, because obviously it's work, it's my job, and it's important, and it's somebody's life. So I probably would have not trained after doing that, because that would have just seen my energy out, been like, "Yeah, Rob, sorry, I had to miss a session. This is why."
It's quite physically taxing.
Yeah, it can be. Even things like walking upstairs after leg day, carrying our equipment, that can be quite taxing. Or carrying somebody downstairs after leg day, or back day, or arm day is.
And you can't be like, oh, every time.
No. I mean, luckily I've been doing this for 16 years next week, so I've got that muscle memory of just being able to get through it as far as lifting people. So even in the sort of deep darkness of prep, I've still got that ability to be able to do it. It's just we just get on with it. The masks that we're having to wear are adding a new experience to it, where you're like trying to breathe, and generally it's the older patients who always have the heating on all year round that need to be carried down 3 flights of stairs, and you're just melting with this mask on trying to carry them. So that's quite an interesting development in the world that is COVID now.
Yeah, it's definitely a weird and wonderful one. I have I've gone back to college, so it's my first weekend this weekend.
Yeah.
And I had to sit there all day and stay in a mask.
Yeah.
That was not fun.
Have you got one of those, you can get strips with 2 buttons either side that you just place on your head? Because I find I get really sore behind my ears, and I wear glasses on night shift as well. So it just gets even worse then when I've got glasses and a mask on. And then I take my mask off and it gets caught on my glasses, and I fling my glasses somewhere and I can't see because I'm blind without my glasses. It's just a nightmare.
Complexities in 2020.
Yeah, I know. Not just the fact that we all want to get on with our own lives and normal lives, and we've got all of this kind of going on. It's just surreal. It's just weird. Definitely.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today. I've loved having you on.
I've loved it as well. It's been really cool.
If people want to find you on Instagram and continue to follow your journey, where can they find you?
I am Blue Lights and Barbells, and with the added now IFBB Pro at the end. So I used to have like all these weird spaces, but I've had to get rid of them to kind of get in the IFBB Pro bit on it. It might change to my actual name at some point, I'm not sure, but at the moment, yeah, it's still Blue Lights and Barbells.
Perfect. I will tag it in the show notes so people can find it if they want to.
Awesome.
Thanks for tuning in as always, guys, and if you enjoyed this episode, please hit like and subscribe, and I will be back again.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure.